Pokemon, we need to talk. And now I know most of the people that are watching this video don't work at the Pokemon Company International. That's okay. You can come in and listen as well. But this is more for the Pokemon Company International because I think we need to have an intervention about deluxe battle decks. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I want to talk about deluxe battle decks because I think they could be better. And just in case now this slide is totally not for the Pokemon Company. This is for you. What are deluxe battle decks? They are the level 2 pre-made product, like pre-made deck meant for intermediate level play. Level 1 EX decks are meant for beginners, just learning how to play the game. Level 3 decks are league battle decks. These are meant for competitive play, and they're the foundation of a competitive deck. Level 2 decks kind of sit somewhere in between in terms of complexity and how competitive they are. There's also a difference in price. Level 1 decks are the cheapest at $10 US. Level 2s are at $20 US, and level 3 is $30 US. For anyone that's a little more price conscious, or you just really like the archetype in the deluxe battle deck, $20 is it's a middle of the road option. One of the other big differences between the level 1, 2, and 3 decks is the number of holo cards in them. So EX decks have 1, deluxe battle decks have 3, and league battle decks have 6. And holo foil cards, they're always Pokemon. If there are trainer cards that are holo in regular sets and they're only holo in regular sets, they will turn those into non-holos so that the Pokemon are just the holo cards, and they're always displayed at the front of the box. They want you to buy these products based on the fact that, oh, Zapdos is in this, Miraidon's in this, Mew is in this, and so on. So the focus for the holo foil cards is always on the Pokemon, and this is a really important thing because when we talk about how decks are built, it's always under the restriction that level 1 decks have 1 holo card, the deluxe battle decks have 3 holo cards, and the league battle decks have 6. Right now, you can go to a store and buy Meowscarada or Quaquaval. And later this year, in March, you can go and buy Zapdos and Ninetales as well. And based on the pattern, I'm almost certain we're going to get another pair of deluxe battle decks in September of 2024. And decisions may have already been made for what those decks are going to be and how they're built. So this video may not help out. It's probably not going to help out at all. But maybe someone at Pokemon hears this before it's too late. I feel like I love the idea of deluxe battle decks. I think that having an intermediate option is awesome. And the problem is that the ones that we have so far and the ones that are coming up, I think they're just a bit underwhelming. I believe that these decks should function as standalone decks with the potential to be at least rogue tier decks when they're fully upgraded. Like, I don't necessarily want this to be a Charizard deck in the deluxe battle deck. I want those for league battle decks. But this should have some sort of competitive viability when upgraded. And I think that's part of the problem with these decks right now. And these decks could be much more desirable with just a few tweaks. Like, with a couple of adjustments, these could be so much better than they currently are right now. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into recos, I do want to set some ground rules here because I'm not just going to be like, oh, just go and make the world champion list straight up like that, because there are some business realities to how these are built. I'm not going to recommend putting top tier archetypes into the deluxe battle deck spot. I think stuff like your Charizards, Roaring Moon, Gardevoir, Miraidon, I definitely want those to stay as league battle decks. You want decks that are like a tier below that where you're okay getting fewer holo cards. And another thing I want to follow here, 3 holo foil cards max, right? I'm not going to try and squeeze in like, oh, if we just get 3 Meowscaradas, but also a Lumineon. And no, we're going to follow the rules as set by the Pokemon Company and follow the business realities of their current infrastructure. And I want to be mindful of rotation as well. I know that sometimes they'll put cards in there that'll rotate in like 7-8 months, but I definitely don't want to put in cards that are going to rotate very soon and then it makes the product obsolete. I want to be mindful of production lead times here. These products are probably planned out and made months before they go to store shelves. And I think the greatest example of this is the Miraidon League Battle deck. There are so many people that were upset about the fact that this deck came with the Regieleki line. And they were like, yeah, but right now, competitively, it's the Flaffy build that's doing hot. And there's two reasons why Flaffy's not in the League Battle deck. One of those is that Flaffy is going to rotate in a couple of months, and you don't want cards in there that are going to rotate out. And two, this product was probably planned out at the beginning of the Scarlet and Violet era, if not earlier than that, when people were building Miraidon with Regieleki. You can go back in the time machine and remember the whole memes about mid-Rhydon. It came from the fact that people were playing Miraidon with Regieleki. That was the way that we thought the deck was played best, and this is probably what they had. So keeping that in mind, like, I don't want to, I don't have a magic wand and can say what cards are coming in the future, but let's keep that in mind as well. One of the things that I think they can do is just pick better archetypes. I think 3 out of the 4 that they've chosen so far have fallen flat just because they're bad choices. Zapdos is super annoying in the sense that Zapdos at best is a one-of tech card in a better Miraidon deck. It gives you some snipe damage, but you're not going to build your entire offense around Zapdos sniping. It's just not built for that. And the Pokemon Company have decided to build an entire deck around Zapdos. And as a standalone deck, it's terrible. As an accessory to the Miraidon League Battle deck, it's actually kind of okay. You get some Bravery Charms, you get a Zapdos, a Hawlucha, and if you buy them together, that makes sense. But as a standalone product, I think this product really stinks. And I think that these deluxe battle decks are better suited as, let me just play the thing out of the box with them working as a standalone deck versus not knowing, playing this deck and being like, man, this really sucks. Why is this so bad? And not knowing that, oh, there's a better deck that you can slam this into to make it kind of decent. So Zapdos, epic fail. Ninetales, arguably even worse. This one's kind of unfortunate because I think that Ninetales of the 4 decks is the closest one to being fully built. But Ninetales in and of itself is just not very good. Its Mirrored Flames attack, its primary attack, is wildly inconsistent. You have to have the exact same number of cards as your opponent in order to get the full benefit of that attack. And despite the fact that they gave you a bunch of cards to try and make that more realistic, it's not consistent enough. And even if you were to fully build out a Ninetales EX deck, it's just not going to be very good at all. And I think that that's really disappointing for this deck. You kind of want it to be a little better than this. I'm not saying it has to be top tier, but better than Ninetales. This is really disappointing. Quaquaval is almost okay. I think getting the Baxcalibur line's really good, and some of the water support cards in there are good. Quaquaval's attack is actually kind of okay in the current meta. Being able to hit 230 is good enough to one-shot a Roaring Moon and an Iron Hands. 230 is a really relevant number to hit right now. But Quaquaval also just has no competitive ceiling right now. Its entire offense falls apart if you get hand disrupted by something like an Iono or a Judge, which every deck plays right now. You don't have any sort of protection against those types of cards. In pre-rotation, maybe they could have put a Milotic line in there, but we're going into post-rotation now. It's not going to have that. This one's saved because Greninja's really good, Baxcalibur is really good, but this is just not... It's not it. It's close, but it's not quite there. The closest one is Meowscarada. I actually am totally fine with the choice of Meowscarada. I love the fact that it's got some pretty good cards to help with its overall game plan. You get the Alakazam to move damage around, and its ability is great, and you get even the Eldegoss line to grab energy. But there are some critical cards that we're missing out of this deck to make it actually function as a decent deck. So this one I will give Pokemon a pass on, but we're going to come back to this deck because this showcases another issue with deluxe battle decks. So I'd say just in terms of archetype selection, 3 out of the 4 were not good. So here's an example of an archetype that I think would be great in a deluxe battle deck format. Goldengo EX. It's got a great attack. It's got a great ability. It's on the fringes of the meta with the potential to get even higher. A number of Goldengo decks just got day 2 at Charlotte Regionals, which is happening at the time of this recording. And you can build this with 3 holo cards. And I've got an example list that I cooked up here. And there's actually a couple of ways to do this. I went with 2 Goldengo and 1 Greninja. You could just go straight up 3 Goldengo, and that's probably fine. We've got a Manaphy to protect the bench. We've got Scissor as a secondary attacker, can punish decks that run a lot of abilities. We have the new Buddy Poffin card to help get our basics down. We've got all our energy manipulation cards, Earthen Vessel, Energy Retrieval, Superior Energy Retrieval. We've got the TM Evolution card. Like, this is a decent deck that can be built. Is it perfect? No, you probably want 4 Goldengos. You could arguably put in 3, but like, this is essentially the foundation for a really good Goldengo deck that you could sell in a store right now that is better and more functional than anything in the Deluxe Battle Deck line right now. And I want to see more stuff like this. Here's another example. Serena. It's got a really interesting game plan where you're using Icicle Soul to whittle down your opponents. You've got the Panic Mask on so they can't hit you back. And then you end off the game with a massive end game attack, knocking out all your opponent's Pokemon in one go. It's a rogue tier deck, so you're not worried about burning a League Battle Deck spot on this, and you can build this with 3 holo foil cards as well. Here's an example that I built with going with 3 Serena EX. We've got the Buddy Poffin card, the new one in there, and then all of this other stuff could reasonably be put into a deluxe battle deck, and you've got like a cool different deck. And I don't see any reason why the Pokemon Company aren't making decks like this versus the ones that they have chosen. Having seen all of these decks and played with all of these decks, the Pokemon Company have decided that there are certain trainer cards that are too complex for a level 2 deck or a level 1 deck. Level 1 decks, it's fine. If you want to put in cards that are not as powerful, but they give you some benefit, I think that's okay. Level 2 decks, I think you can take more of the training wheels off and put on some of the stronger training cards. For example, Youngster is in all of these decks. I think you can take out Youngster and put in a better supporter. Youngster, you shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 5 cards. This was a good card in certain metas, but in the current meta where we have cards like Iono and Judge that let you shuffle your hand into your deck and draw cards and disrupt your opponent's hand as well, I think that these are much better choices that aren't going to be overly complicated for players that are buying level 2 decks. So I think, yeah, get rid of Youngster, put in Iono or Judge, and the Ninetales deck has Judge already. I don't think it's that much of a stretch to put Judge into the other decks, or Iono for that matter at this point. I think we can get rid of Jacques. Yes, it's not bad within the context of these intermediate level decks being able to grab 2 evolution Pokemon, but for the most part, you want to save your supporter for something else, whether it's a Professor's Research, a Boss's Orders, and I think that for the most part, Ultra Ball is fine. Discard 2 cards, grab a Pokemon of your choice. That's going to be fine. If you really need more than that, you could go with a Capturing Aroma. Yes, it's a little more random, but I would rather have more item-based Pokemon search than Jacques, where you're burning your supporter and you can't do anything else. Rhyme shows up inexplicably in the Zapdos deck. I would rather see cards like Worker. Let's replicate the 2 different things that it does. So it's half Escape Rope, half Draw 3. And I would rather have a draw 3 that does more stuff. So Worker lets you draw 3 cards and discard a stadium. We're losing Escape Rope, and we're probably not going to get Prime Catcher in a deluxe battle deck. Totally fine if we don't. I think Counter Catcher could be an alternative. I would rather see those instead of Rhyme. And then Rika is a card that ended up in the Zapdos deck as well. You look at the top 4 cards of your deck, you keep 2, you put the other 2 at the bottom of your deck. I would rather just see Colress's Experiment at that point. Yes, you're going to put 2 cards in the Lost Zone, and Pokemon's probably arguing like, yeah, but then we have to talk about the Lost Zone, and that's a whole other level of complexity that we don't want our intermediate level players to deal with. I'd say just, I think it's fine. I'm a little more okay with them saying like, all right, maybe not Colress, just put in some other hand disruption like Iono. Anything other than drawing 2 cards, like anything other than this, please. Last one, I think that just within the archetypes, choosing better cards within them. I think Meowscarada EX is so close to being what I want to see a deluxe battle deck be, but they're missing a couple of major pieces. One of those is Rare Candy. In the Meowscarada deck, you do not have Rare Candy. You cannot evolve from your basic to your stage 2 on the second turn. And that is like an absolute death sentence for the deck. You're not even attacking until your third turn, at which point you could already be behind on prizes. You may have lost energy that you attached to a Sprigatito and they got knocked out. And now you can't come back. You just lose. And that just makes the deck incredibly difficult to play. And on top of that, Meowscarada's attack is 2 colorless energy, and there's no double turbo energy in the deck. Double turbo lets you get rolling in 1 turn to cover that cost. And without the double turbo energy and without the rare candy, it becomes incredibly difficult to set up the Meowscarada deck. And I think just putting those cards into the deluxe battle deck, yeah, we're good. All the other changes, like you could nitpick, maybe you'd want Bibarel instead of the Eldegoss line, but fine. But really, if it just had rare candy, double turbo energy, and you could make room for that, the deck comes with a ton of more energy than the deck needs. Replace some of the grass energy with double turbo, take out some other cards, put in rare candy, and this deck would be great as a deluxe battle deck. The Quaquaval deck, it's got 2 stage 2 lines and it only comes with 2 rare candy. This one, you should have 4. You kind of can get away with it because you don't necessarily need Baxcalibur set up on the second turn. You can go attach 2 for Spiral Shot and then go from Figurebacks to Arctibax on turn 2 and then manually evolve on turn 3. But like for a deck with multiple stage 2s, give me 4 rare candy, please. And then on top of that, there's no gusting in this deck. You can't boss's orders anything and just pick a target of your choice. So you have to hit what's in front of you all the time, which is not ideal in the slightest. The Zapdos deck, this, I mean, I hate the archetype as a whole, but it's hilariously bad that they only gave you 3 electric generators in the deck. This should be a 4. If you're playing a lightning deck, you got to have 4 electric generators in every deck you build. And for some reason, they decided to cheap out and only gave us 3. I don't know why. I do not know why. And especially in this build where Zapdos takes so much energy, Miraidon takes so much energy, the Pawmods take so much energy, the least they could have done is given us 4 electric generators. And they did it, and that feels like such an easy fix. You already gave us 3. Why not 4? I can't. There are no other cards that you can look at on that list and say, I say that this is more important to have than a 4th generator. Also, just like it has the worst lineup of trainer cards. You're getting stuff like Rika and Rhyme for no reason whatsoever. And arguably there's another Pawmot that they could have used that doesn't discard energy that arguably would be a better attacker than the one that they have in the Zapdos deck. But yeah, I digress. And then Ninetales, like even though I think the ceiling on Ninetales is really low, it's still missing some core pieces. It doesn't have Magma Basin in there or any other form of energy acceleration. If you attach energy to your Vulpix and it gets knocked out on turn 1, like you're done. You can't accelerate fast enough to be able to attack again. You just lose the game. And Magma Basin's such an easy fix because it lets you attach energy from the discard pile and you can keep your offense going. But without that, like you're just dead. And Tauros comes into, like, you don't even have to look at the Tauros card. Tauros is a single prize attacker, takes 2 energy. If you power up that Tauros, you just lose because now that gets knocked out in 1 hit, and now you can't build up a Ninetales fast enough to attack again, and you just lose. And this would be so much more functional if it just had a Magma Basin in there. In conclusion, deluxe battle decks, I love the idea of them. I think they could be better than where they're at right now, though. Like, I just want to see better base archetypes. I think Meowscarada is great. The other 3, not so much. I would like to see more archetypes on that Meowscarada tier, possibly higher. Like Goldengo to me would be like the ceiling of an archetype, of just like knocking on the door of meta relevant while also still being able to build it with 3 holo foil cards. Just a better selection of trainer cards. I think it's time to let go of Jacques and Youngster. Give us some more relevant trainer cards, better trainer cards, and just better deck specific techs that prioritize core functions. Like, just give us the cards that help us set up, help us draw cards, help us accelerate energy, and help us pick our targets that we want to hit. And I feel like if they had a do-over, this line could be so much better with a couple more tweaks. And I hope going forward that the Pokemon Company, like, they're probably not going to watch this video, but I hope someone on that side is thinking about these things in the way that I'm thinking about it. And I understand there are business realities that make all of this difficult, and there's probably stuff that I'm missing that don't make it feasible. And maybe what we get is the absolute best that they can do. And if that is the case, then it is what it is. But I pray that we can get better decks that are better to play and just more complete out of the box. But what say you? Do you even care about these deluxe battle decks at all? Maybe not to the effect that I do, and maybe you care more. I don't know, but I feel like these should be better than they currently are, and I keep my fingers crossed that in the future they will be. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know. But for now, I got to get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at @InThirdPerson. You can find me on Twitch at @InThirdPerson, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.